dear. Those are the first two words I'm thinking about going into this video today. What's up, guys? It's Lex Alexis, and today's the video I've literally been dreading since September. It is my official reaction to my 24-25 championship table. We're going to travel back in time by 10 months, and we're going to see what table I thought we were going to see for this championship season. Spoiler alert, it is my worst season ever in predictions. So I'm not looking forward to this, but I'm going to have to get out of the way. It is tradition for me to do all of this, and it has been certainly unpredictable living up to the championship name. 6 seasons now I've done this, and I'm hoping to see an improvement each time that I do this, but yeah, I'm going to have to reassess and try and fight back next season probably, but oh goodness me, I'm not looking forward to this. But guys, don't think you're going to get off lightly. I'm going to also look at your predictions as well later on in the video, so we can kind of laugh at each other to kind of make it clear how wrong we all were. If you guys like what we see, please smash the like button. Really does help the growth of this channel. Please do hit the subscribe button too, and please share the channel too. All of that really helps. But without any further ado, reluctantly, let's look at my championship table predictions. Starting things off, I predicted Oxford to finish 24th, last place, rock bottom of the championship. And I certainly was not the only one. I think Oxford was certainly written off by a lot of us. I think certainly with the personnel of manager and certainly with the squad players. Now certainly when they actually went into the season and before when I made this video, I was certainly showing some concerns on their squad. I was a bit concerned of the lack of championship experience from Des Buckingham, and Oxford got to a point around November time where they did look like that they were starting to fall trapped to the relegation battle, but it was a bit of a masterstroke for them to get Gary Rowett in, and honestly he transformed that club, got them a really good winning mentality. They finished in 17th place, managed to crack over 50 points in the end. Certainly way more points than what I was expecting by this point of the season. And yeah, that's all I can say. Fair play, Oxford. You have proven me wrong. Doesn't get much better in my table predictions because I was one of the very few YouTubers that predicted Portsmouth to get relegated. This was sort of my rogue shout out of many rogue shouts you're going to see very, very soon in terms of my championship table prediction. But my goodness me, I was wrong. I was very, very wrong on this. And what I figured is that with Portsmouth's very difficult fixture list at the start of the season, I thought they were going to take so much time to even get a good run of games where they can pick up their momentum. And I actually remember mentioning in that video, and I'm not going to show a clip, I mean, because it's an hour long. Why do I think recording an hour-long video is a good idea is beyond me. I don't know, my mind was a different place back when I was doing it. But I remembered the significance of Colby Bishop missing the first half of the season, and I promise you, when he came back, oh my goodness me, Portsmouth really transformed, and he was one of the vocal points with Josh Murphy, who they picked from Oxford. They both worked together wonders this season, and Portsmouth again finished 7 places better than what I predicted of them. John Mousinho proved me wrong as a very capable championship manager, and the squad of players, fair play to them. Now to a prediction where I can kind of say it actually wasn't that bad. I predicted Plymouth to finish in 22nd. They finished 23rd. And actually they were at a point where they could have finished 22nd had Luton not won their previous game before the end of the season against Coventry. By that point, their goal difference was just way too much to come by, and they gave a really good fight right to the end of the season and really forced Leeds to work hard to try and get that championship title. Plymouth have certainly had a season of two halves. The first half under Wayne Rooney was disastrous. They just were not picking up enough points away from home. That has been their biggest kryptonite. It has been their away form with only 2 away wins all season. That is why Plymouth are relegated. But their home form, Plymouth, I would actually say in glimpses and Wayne Rooney as well, they were very, very competitive at home and really were a tough team, especially for the top 6 sides in terms of their home games. And I certainly think out of the 3 relegated sides, I think Plymouth are the best equipped to bounce straight back up. One place out, I could say that this is definitely my best prediction so far, but it wasn't groundbreaking because lots of other content creators and YouTubers and people on social media also predicted Plymouth to go down, especially when they heard the announcement of Wayne Rooney being appointed as their manager. So my next position is not the most terrible one in the world. I predicted Derby County to narrowly avoid the drop, and lo and behold, it's exactly what it did. And if you cast your mind back a couple of months ago, it would have really been against Derby County to try and survive the championship. I saw the weakness of Paul Warne and the squad of players, which I deemed, to be pretty experienced within the championship, but there were some certain issues there. Paul Warne was dismissed. I could not have predicted John Eustace would have joined Derby after previously just managing Blackburn and actually leaving whilst he was currently employed. If I did think of that, I probably would have thought that Blackburn would have dismissed John Eustace and he would have joined Derby that way. I could have not seen those circumstances occurring, but fair play to him. It took him a little bit of time to get some results going, but once he got a good amount of results, they were flying Derby, and they did survive. They were only 1 point ahead of 21st place in the end, so very, very close. 2 positions out. It's not a terrible prediction for me, so I'll take it because you've got some really shocking predictions coming up very soon. And this is what I'm talking about. My worst prediction so far is predicting Blackburn Rovers to finish in 20th. I predicted Blackburn to finish in the bottom 5 and they finished in the top 7. What on earth was I thinking? So clearly I casted my mind back to how weak the squad was. They did lose some players. They lost Gallagher in the summer, I remember, but Blackburn were very, very quiet in the transfer window when I did make my original video. They only started signing people rather late into the window, and I did factor that they would have had very little time to gel. But in their opening day, they smashed Derby County by 4 goals to 2, and I was thinking, well, okay, I've clearly got Blackburn wrong there. They were really performing well, and whilst they were mostly good with their form, they were in or around, fighting for top 6. John Eustace departing the way that they did, I could not predict if that was the circumstance that he would go through to leave Blackburn. And it ended up with Blackburn getting Valérien Ismaël in. And likewise with John Eustace with Derby, ironically, it took him quite a fair bit of time to get things going. Had to go through some pretty bad patches of form until eventually the form started creeping up. And Blackburn, in the end of it, were only out of the top 6 by 2 points. So Blackburn, despite going through that terrible run actually when Ismaël came in this first period, they were so close from getting into the top 6. So Blackburn in 7th, I think it's their joint best finish since getting promoted from League One quite a few seasons ago now. And I sense this Blackburn side is certainly not on man for man a 7th best team in the championship. I do think they have overachieved, but the question will be, can they ride on that positive wave of momentum, and can Ismaël be the manager to take them there? I still have a lot of question marks with Blackburn Rovers, but I cannot deny I got them very, very wrong. Sorry, Blackburn fans, I completely underestimated the value of that squad. So in 19th place, I was a little bit bold with this. I predicted Watford to finish down in 19th. Undoubtedly, it has been a pretty bad season as a whole for Watford because of their finishing position, but I did underestimate them quite a fair bit. They finished in 19th, but what I didn't factor, Watford were going to start the season incredibly. But no side has picked up less points than Watford in the whole of 2025 in the Championship. So I do worry about their form going into next season. I am going to be intrigued to see what sort of movements we're going to see in managerial level and potential player level as well. Certainly lots of change happened with Watford the past couple of seasons though, with players going to other clubs. With Cleverley, he actually survived a whole season and wasn't sacked. So I've got to say, I would tip my hat off to Cleverley, but he managed to survive the managerial chop. But next year, I would be a little bit worried if he cannot bring that form up. But 14th place, I predicted 19th. Yeah, I underestimated Watford quite a fair bit. Even if I just bumped them a couple of places higher, I think it would have looked a really, really respectable prediction from me. I'm not covering myself in glory here. I'm predicting Millwall to finish 18th. I've looked back at my table predictions, right? I'm still struggling to see why I predicted Mill to finish in 18th. I am very well aware that the season before, it was certainly a disappointing season compared to what they were used to. Obviously, Garrett left last year and Neil Harris had to come in and sort things out and get things sorted from them. And I definitely remember last year, I predicted Mill, and I guarantee you right now, if I put my last year table predictions, I actually think I'd be quite accurate. Because if I recall, I think I had Sunderland and Coventry to both finish in the top 6. I think I had Mill to just miss out from the playoffs. I think I had Cardiff to narrowly avoid the drop or to be around the bottom 5. I think there are certain teams I predicted so much better from last year. So all I needed to do was apply my reasoning to the teams from last year into this year, but not to revise my predictions so much. So I think the lessons learned, because of things that you've got wrong the year before, it doesn't mean you have to rearrange and change lots of things. And Millwall were going into this season with a little bit of, I don't know what's the right word with it, but I was just a bit uncertain how they were going to be, and that showed from my really poor prediction there. To be fair, I think 18th was not a terrible shout in the first half of the season. Alex Neil eventually came in whilst Neil Harris was dismissed in the end. And it took, again, a little bit of time, and I'm noticing it. I don't think there were many managers that walked into the job and they got a complete turnaround of form. I've noticed with most of the managers that have taken over from a previous manager that it's taken 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 games to have a defeat or win this run to actually get things going. And Alex Neil does fall into the camp that did have that, but Alex Neil made them very competitive. Got them in 8th place in the end, and were momentarily in the top 6 when they took that early lead against Burnley. So ultimately, results didn't go their way on the final day of the season. They also miss out on getting into the top 6 and actually fall behind Blackburn, with the fact that Blackburn managed to pick up that draw against Sheffield United on the final day. So 8th place, considering where they were in the first half of the season, that's actually not a bad finish from Millwall. And I think, certainly with the full season of Alex Neil, I'll be interested to see what he does with his Mills side. I think they're going to be an interesting team next year. Big shout out as well to Ivanovic as well. Certainly one of the young players of the Championship, just popping by with so many crucial goals for Millwall. I just got to shout him out as well, because he has been absolutely sensational, a revelation this season. Am I going to get a correct prediction? I mean, spoiler alert, it's not going to be many, but I'm not covering myself in glory again. I predicted Swansea to finish in a low 17th place. What I will say, I think with Luke Williams, I think they would have finished around 17th. They were almost exactly in that position by February time. Then obviously Luke Williams goes. The form that Swansea have had since parting ways with Williams has been amazing. It has been unbelievable. They have been one of the informed sides in the past couple of games of the Championship season. It's great to have that positive momentum. It's just going to be interesting now with this elongated break, with a transfer window and other movements in and out of the club. Can they sustain that momentum? But certainly that positive momentum in the last couple of months of the season killed my prediction here. So 6 places out. Very, very punishing, the Championship. You could be so close one month and then a couple of games come round and the team can jump many places. And it's been 6 places wrong in that case for Swansea. Not a terrible prediction, this one. I predicted Stoke to finish in 16th. They actually finished 18th, so I actually overestimated Stoke quite a bit from my starting predictions. And Stoke are generally finishing in that low mid-table position now. And I do fear for complacency from this Stoke City side. they did in the end only finish 2 points above relegation. And I do think that they need a lot more inspiration for me to feel a bit more confident going into next season. Now, Stoke, of course, had a couple of changes of manager themselves. I mean, Steven Schumacher starting things off, very, very uninspiring. And then with Mark Robins coming in, I would not have predicted that. I certainly would not have predicted that. And in the end of it, again, took quite a fair few games before Stoke started hitting the ground running when he came in. But they did actually, to be fair, Stoke do quite well in April, picking up some really good results against the teams around them. And because of that, Stoke did in the end manage to finish with a little bit of a buffer. But I am casting my mind back to that 6-0 defeat against Leeds. And the fact that it could have been more. I do worry for Stoke next year. They definitely need to make sure that they just have a clear plan and strategy to improve for next season. I do feel with Stoke, it could easily be a side that can find themselves sleepwalking into relegation if they do not act quickly. But in the end, 18th place, well, I predicted 16th. Don't think I was too far off with this one. Now, this next table prediction is quite bad. I predicted Preston to finish in 15th, where in direct contrast, they finished 20th. They were so close, Preston, to getting relegated. Only 1 point above the relegation zone in the end. Why did I get this wrong? Well, obviously at the start, Ryan Lowe got dismissed very, very quickly. And then Paul Heckingbottom came in pretty early on within the season. And not quite full season with Paul Heckingbottom, but it's almost going to be treated like one due to how quickly Ryan Lowe was dismissed as Preston boss. But I do sense that Preston's home form has been rather respectable. It's been their away form that has really crippled Preston's season as a whole. And that's an area that they definitely need improving on for next season. And it was one of those situations where actually when they were going round in the FA Cup and when they confirmed their survival, it did look like 15th was actually going to be a pretty good prediction for Preston. If anything, may have underestimated them. But due to the fact that they really were very complacent in those past couple of weeks and teams at the bottom fighting for their lives kept picking up wins, Preston were dragged into relegation battle where they really shouldn't have been. Certainly a season that Preston will want to forget, but they'll feel and count themselves lucky that they now find themselves playing championship football again. Goodness me, it's just bad prediction after bad prediction after bad prediction. I mean, I'm going to say it. It's my worst ever table predictions. I can't exaggerate that enough. I predicted Cardiff in 14th where they finished rock bottom. That squad should never have finished rock bottom. I'm going to say it. I do think 14th I thought was a very fair prediction. But I could not have sensed the complete capitulation to Cardiff's start of the season. They were absolutely hopeless at the start. Bellew was one of the first managers to be dismissed. Then they had a little bit of a good run of form going into January, but February onwards, Cardiff were all over the place. Just could not buy a win. And naturally, they had some really crunch games, Cardiff. The likes of QPR, where they only drew that game. The likes of Oxford, where they only drew that game. And the likes of Luton, who they lost that game. It's those games that cost them. And all three of those games were home games. And to only pick up 2 points out of 9 from those games, disgraceful. And if they did pick up 3 wins from those games, they would have been safe. So Cardiff just did not have the right approach to those crunch games when they needed to. And ultimately, it find themselves in League One for the first time. I believe it's 22 years is the stat. Devastating, really, that a side like Cardiff, only like within 6 or 7 seasons ago, were a Premier League club. So it does go to show, it doesn't matter about your pedigree. If you cannot back yourself with wins, which we're going to discuss with Luton very soon, you can't stay up as a championship club. And Cardiff are going to have to try and fight in League One to try and get automatically promoted. And I don't know if they're going to do that, as easily as people are trying to say. I think Cardiff are going to find it very, very tough. It's been a very, very bad season for Cardiff, but an even worse set of predictions from me. 14th place, I mean, yeah, I still stand by my point that Cardiff should not have gone down, but maybe 14th in hindsight was a bit too generous for me. This has been a rough bottom half of the table, and it's ending in absolute misery. It's just all sadness and thunder and lightning. No sunshine and rainbows in these predictions here. I predicted Sunderland to finish 13th, and they finished 4th. And again, I am so annoyed with this prediction because last year, do you want to know where I predicted Sunderland? I predicted them to finish 4th. So again, I was thinking 1 year ahead of the game last year. I just should have backed what I originally predicted last year. I'm so gutted with myself that I just made all these changes. I accrued, I say, about over 100 points last year in terms of how many bad predictions I had, and I felt I needed to make all these changes. You would find that I would have scored a lot less points and actually a lot more correct positions if I just stuck with my gut from last year. So I think a lot of this was down to the fact that Sunderland did fall quite significantly the year before, and they appointed a manager who was very inexperienced in English football. But if I looked at it, I probably should have seen that Sunderland were a side that were going to have a project that actually, if it all went well and not many players were getting injured, it would have been great. And lo and behold, in the first half of the season, Sunderland were brilliant. They were really going head to head with the likes of Burnley, Leeds and Sheffield United. But then injuries started catching up with them in the turn of the new year in 2025. And that was the start of Sunderland losing the pace. Their form into the playoffs, not very encouraging. They've got to play Coventry, Sunderland, and they'll be pleased that they got themselves into playoffs. It's certainly what they would have wanted, at least from this season, but I don't think they're going to be feeling good about this. They're facing an informed Coventry side who recently beat them by 3-0 at the Ricoh Arena. I think Sunderland have really got to try and defy the odds here for the fact that they've had 5 defeats in a row now. They've got to now try and recover. But I cannot talk bad on Sunderland because I've not covered myself in glory at all. 9 positions out, 13th place. What was I thinking? Now made it to the top half of the table, and we start things off with QPR. It's a wrong prediction, but it's not a terrible prediction, so I'm going to take it. They finished in 15th in the end. Definitely could have finished 12th, QPR, based on their form, especially around November to January. Then it got to a position where they started slumping their form quite significantly, and then when they were somewhat dragged as a relegation outsider, they did pick up their form crucially when they needed to, picking up a good win away against Preston, I remember. But certainly 15th was a little bit, I'd say, of an underperformance based on how they performed for quite a fair bit of that season, and it has ended in a way that I don't think they would have wanted. I mean, great win on the final day, of course, against Sunderland, but Cifuentes, who I would have expected would have been one of the managers of the year if he got QPR into a really good position, he was placed on gardening leave, which essentially means he is no longer going to be manager of Queen's Park Rangers, and I can imagine loads of players are going to be leaving as well. I will be keeping my eye on QPR. Ultimately, they certainly have the minerals and they can definitely attack the season again. They're certainly one of the more experienced Championship sides now. We're going to have to see if they can certainly survive a drop because we've seen this year. You know, you can't be too big to get relegated in the Championship. It is absolutely ruthless. 3 positions out for me. Not too bad. Now to a very, very close prediction. I got Sheffield Wednesday wrong by 1 place. I predicted them in 11th and they finished 12th. And I dare say, I think they would have got 11th, or I think, yeah, it would have been 11th, I think, had Sheffield Wednesday beaten Watford in the last day of the season. But can't be too hard on them. They did fall behind, to be fair, to get that draw. So Sheffield Wednesday's season has certainly been very up and down. It hasn't really necessarily been as convincing as I thought it was going to be. Certainly at the start, I was quite excited for what Sheffield Wednesday were doing. They were slowly being an outsider for playoffs, but then Their form, Sheffield Wednesday, especially in April, was horrendous. And I remember doing my playoff video thinking Sheffield Wednesday on paper have got such a nice run of games. If they pulled off a good run together, they could be sneaking into the playoffs. You know, a little bit like what Bristol City were doing to sneak into the playoffs where they weren't originally in that top 6 by the time I did that video. But lo and behold, they didn't do that. They fell a little bit short from that. I will be interested again to see what movement we get. Danny Rowe has been linked with a move away. In terms of my prediction, I say this is one of my better ones, but it's not one that I'm alone with. I think a lot of content creators predicted Sheffield Wednesday to finish in around a mid-table position, so I can't really take too much credit. I want to stop this video because this is absolutely embarrassing now. I predicted Hull City to finish in the top 10 and they finished 21st. Oh my gosh. That is a 14 place drop from last season. I only dropped them by 3 places and I am so annoyed at myself because I distinctively remember in my video I was so skeptical with the manager that they had currently. I was skeptical with the lack of depth in their squad. It has been, ringing, alarm bells, and I just was not brave enough. I just did not see Hull falling down 14 places. But a team to fall down 14, 15 places is not unusual. But as you saw there with Blackburn, for instance, I felt like maybe I thought I was going to accrue a 13-point wrong prediction if I pushed Hull that low, but I should have really stuck to what I was feeling. I went for 10th because I convinced myself that it was a 3-place drop from last year, and I felt that might have been enough, but they lost Philogene. They lost so many major players. Delap, would not have been around either. So, oh my gosh, it's just so frustrating. That's all I can say. Such a frustrating season for me in terms of table predictions. I don't know why I didn't see it. The fact that Hull did narrowly survive, I'm pleased for them. I'm sounding very, very bitter, but that's from my own doing. I'm pleased for Hull that they did survive in the end. I think Ruben Sellers coming in has certainly improved things. I certainly would like to see him have a chance to at least stick around for the beginning part of next season for Hull. I certainly think he can definitely do a good job given the resources, but oh my gosh, I'm not covering myself in glory at all. Next up, I got Norwich in 9th. This is actually not too bad of a prediction, but again, I should have put them down a little bit more. I thought 9th for me was actually quite harsh, and I think a lot of the season, I think 9th was not a terrible shout for what Norwich would have finished in. But you look at that attacking squad, it is such a talented squad. But defensively, they are shambles. And that is what has cost Norwich this season. That's why they're right in the middle of the park. So they know the issues they need to address. Jonas Handforup did leave in the end. I was quite unconvinced with him as a manager as a whole. Jack Wilshere coming in, certainly I would not have predicted him being manager by the end of the season. And it does feel like to me, with some of the whispers going around at the moment, that he might actually lead Norwich as a manager next season. I will be very interested to see how they get on in that regard. But 4 places off, 9th place. I think some, would have predicted Norwich actually a little bit higher. So I'm a little bit pleased I didn't score too many points with my Norwich prediction. Okay, a better prediction now. I predicted Bristol City to finish in 8th. And I gotta say, I think we were kind of split with how Bristol City was going to be in terms of content creators. Some thought that they would be lower mid-table, but some also thought that they would actually jump and actually do quite well. I was in the camp where I thought they'd do quite well. I didn't think it would be enough for playoffs, and lo and behold, they did. They nearly lost playoffs on the final day, though. I won't forget that. But they did pull it out the bag in the end. They got that draw against Preston, and they secured it in 6th place. Fair play to them. It is actually their first playoff campaign, I believe, since 2008, where they lost, of course, in the playoff final against Hull City, if you remember. So, Bristol City, from their championship experience in the playoffs, have got a good record. I think Sheffield United are going to be worried, and especially with Sheffield United's really poor record in playoffs, I would not be too surprised if some people are going to be predicting Bristol City to get the better of them there. So I'm really going to be excited to see if Bristol City could potentially go up to the Premier League. It would be really nice for them. But I'm quite happy with my prediction. And I'm really going to give a shout out to Liam Manning. He has certainly not had the easiest of years at all. Actually took time out of football as well for family reasons as well. What an unbelievable, sport he has been. And he has done himself absolutely proud to get this Bristol City side in the top 6, as I said, for the first time in over 15 years. It is absolutely insane. Well done, Bristol City, and well done to Liam Manning. And the final team that I predicted to miss out on top 6 was West Brom, which I was correct. West Brom did not make it into the top 6. A lot of us did not think that West Brom would get top 6. I think I may have overestimated them just ever so slightly. But I do think, and I will stand by this, West Brom were in a very good position to get top 6. And I thought I might have actually been a bit harsh on West Brom's chances. But they sustained 3 defeats in a row, didn't they? When they initially put Tony Mowbray in. And I think with Carlos Corberán, I don't know if I mentioned that he would have attracted interest. Of course, in the end, he did leave to join Valencia. It was a good opportunity for him. And has actually done okay with himself since managing Valencia there. Tony Mowbray came in, started well, but then quickly descended into chaos. I think, as I said, 3 defeats in a row really killed West Brom's chances of getting into the top 6. And lo and behold, they just had too much to do. And they ended the season with an emphatic win over Luton Town. Had they shown that form in 1 or 2 games, I mean, easily my 7th place prediction would have been fulfilled. But tight margins are making a difference here. And right now, my biggest concern going into the top 6, I've not got a single team in the exact correct position yet. Is this going to be a first where I have not predicted a correct team at all? We're going to have to find out now as I reveal the top 6. Starting things off, I got Sheffield United 6th. I mean, I certainly looked at this as Chris Wilder needed to prove himself again as a Championship manager, and I thought that we would have seen a bit of a hangover with their really, really underwhelming performance in the Premier League last year. But immediately within the first couple of games, I saw, okay, Sheffield United look well equipped. And in fact, they did really look like that they were going to be one of the favourites to be getting promoted. And they were fighting with Burnley and Leeds the whole way. They were at some points actually top of the table. Unfortunately, the crunch game between them and Burnley, they were in the wrong end of that result. And when they sustained those 3 defeats in a row, losing to Plymouth, for instance, losing to Oxford, it was the worst timing for Sheffield United to lose those games as Burnley and Leeds took advantage. 90 points that they have accrued, or sort of around that region in the end. Certainly one of the most amount of points you would have had to get to not get promoted. I mean, the quality to get 2 teams finishing 100 points is insane. So Chris Wilder might feel a little bit hard done by that Sheffield United have not been automatically promoted, but it is really down to him now to try and get the better of the teams in the playoffs, because there's no doubt in my mind they've accrued way more points than the 3 other sides in the playoff. And Sheffield United have got to show that quality off and get the better of those playoff games and to prove themselves they do deserve to be in the Premier League next year. Okay, this next prediction is quite bad as well. I predicted Middlesbrough to finish 5th and they finished 10th. But likewise with Cardiff, I think my prediction for Middlesbrough was justified. You had Michael Carrick, who is very, very experienced now as a Championship manager. You've got a squad, again likewise with Norwich, who attacking-wise can almost compete with any side. But what I've seen a lot of Middlesbrough this season is them not taking chances. There's no secret that they've really underperformed compared to the chances that they've created in those games, their XG table. So I do think Middlesbrough have certainly not covered themselves in glory there. The quality that they have, the chances that they've had, and with the amount of wins that they've had as well, to finish 10th with that squad is ludicrous. I cannot believe that Middlesbrough have fallen as far down as 10th, and they have fallen as far down as 10th because they lost their final game against Coventry. Had they won that game, then Middlesbrough would have found themselves into the playoffs. They would have. So, Very, very tight margins, especially in that top 10 to the top 6 region of the table. So, whilst the 5 places out, not many points separated 5th and 10th place. So, tough on me on this one, but Middlesbrough certainly let themselves down. They had countless chances to secure those playoff places, and they bottled it, unfortunately. Next, I predicted Coventry. They actually finished in 5th. I was 1 place out. So, this is a strange one for me, and it really does show how quickly things can change in the Championship. At the start of the season, this would have been one of my worst predictions. Probably even worse than the one that's about to appear after that. But Coventry, at the start of the season, were right in the midst of the bottom 5. Unbelievable. I think they were 17th, I think that's the stat that they were when they dismissed Mark Robins and Frank Lampard came in, which, I gotta say, very mixed reactions. Some were quite excited, some were very sceptical on the appointment of Frank Lampard. But he has proven himself that he can be a good Championship manager. He has managed to get Coventry to 17th all the way up to 4th. Their home form, Coventry, since Lampard has come in, has been immaculate. And been really, really good against some really good sides. I think it was only Leeds that managed to get in their way, and Sheffield United, of course. But as a whole, they've done unbelievably well to get into the position that they found themselves. Now in the playoffs, they've got Sunderland, of course, to play. And I've already mentioned, I think Coventry are the favourites. They recently beat Sunderland very comfortably in their last meeting. And I think if they can get into the playoff final again, that will be 2 seasons in a row where Coventry have made it into the playoff final. And the last team I remember doing that, who did manage to, get the better of this playoff hoodoo in the end, was Brentford. And we can now see where they are now in the Premier League. Coventry have really got to be trying to target for that, I think. But quite lucky in terms of my predictions, considering how Coventry started the season. But I'm going to take it because I need some luck. These table predictions have been terrible, and it's just about to get even worse. So here it is. This is the prediction you guys have been waiting for. I've teased it in my community post that I was really worried to see where I predicted this club. I predicted Luton to finish in 3rd, except they actually finished 3rd bottom. So I am 19 places out. Oh my goodness me. Well, the only saving grace for this, so many of us have made this mistake. I think there was very few people that would have actually predicted Luton in the bottom half. I feel like the lowest I would have seen would have been Luton around top 6. But bottom 3, I don't think any of us expected. They're only the 4th side in history to have back-to-back relegations from the Premier League all the way down to League One. It's not a good record to have, and as you can see, it is a very rare thing to occur. I really fear for Luton. I do. I do think they kept Rob Edwards a little bit too long, personally. I thought their home form at the start of the season was okay. Then, certainly, November to February, very poor. Matt Bloomfield came in, and again, likewise with loads of these managers, needed time to get things right. But once he got his first win, and I remember it vividly, I think it was against Cardiff away from home, they started Luton to go on that great escape. And the work they did to get into the position that they did, I mean, it's unbelievable. I actually tip my hat off to Matt Bloomfield for the fact that he actually got only by goal difference to get relegated in the end. Because they looked really, really hopeless, at some points, Luton Town. So I'll give him some credit for that, but ultimately, so many of that player squad just underperformed. The main core of it was that same squad that was in the Premier League, who performed quite well in the Premier League, I felt. So, really, really sad day for Luton. Back-to-back relegations. They've not been used to relegations. They've been used to going on the up. They're now having a tough part of their history, or recent success from their history, of having back-to-back relegations, and they're going to have to try and bounce back from it. They certainly will be on paper one of the favourites if they can keep loads of their players to win League One next year, but I wouldn't give it a guarantee. It is a tough league to get out of League One. So, I was wrong. 19 places. I think that's the worst prediction I think I've ever done in my 6 years of doing Championship table predictions. I don't think I've actually ever predicted a side to be wrong by 19 places. I've got Huddersfield wrong by 18 places before, where I famously got them to finish in 21st when they actually finished 3rd place in an amazing season under Carlos Corberán. But I think that was the only other time where I really got a team wrong. This is certainly one that's going to sting. But luckily, with ending on a high, I managed to predict the top 2. Now, it would have been absolute comedy if I got Burnley and Leeds the wrong way round and I didn't get a single team in the exact correct position. But luckily, I did. And there was a good chance where Burnley would have finished above Leeds had Manor Solomon not got that last minute goal against Plymouth. So in the end, it was very, very close. I thought Leeds were going to run away from it. I feel like that's what I felt like I remembered saying in terms of my original predictions. They didn't. Burnley pushed them. Both to be on 100 points is insane. I don't think that's ever happened to have 2 teams on 100 points. We've seen sides break the 100 point mark before, but I don't think we've ever seen 2 teams in the same season get 100 points. I think, if I'm right in saying, there's only 6 sides in Championship history, at least, who have picked up 100 points. And 2 of them are here. Unbelievable. Unbelievable season for Leeds and Burnley. I'm pleased for them they're back to the Prem. I do fear that if they can compete in the Prem, in all honesty, I think we, have got a harsh reality now where it's going to be so difficult for newly promoted sides to stay up in the Premier League. I don't want to predict them at the moment, but I do feel they're going to need a bit of a miracle, and they certainly will need to keep a lot of their players, all the resources, and the managers as well. They're going to have to prove themselves. But in the meantime, it's time for them to party. They're back to the Premier League, and I can party momentarily because I've actually got 2 correct predictions. So guys, that is my final table. Look at all of this. It is terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. That top 2, I'm not going to take too much credit. Lots of people would have predicted that exact top 2 as well. And you're going to be wondering how many points are picked up. To remind you guys, when you get 1 position wrong in the table predictions, you make 1 point. And ultimately, a little bit like Pointless, the game show, you want as little points as possible to get better results. So the -19 and then the +13 from Blackburn. The amount of teams I was over 10 places wrong with. Blackburn 1. Millwall 10 with 2. Cardiff wrong by 10, that's 3. Sunderland was nearly 10, that's 9. And then, of course, Luton Town 90 places wrong. And I've nearly skipped over Hull. 11 places wrong. So nearly a quarter of the championship. I was wrong by over 10 places. Oh my goodness me, I would not want to look at this back. But in terms of my final points tally, I accrued 128 points. So that season where I referenced where I got Huddersfield wrong by 18 places, that was initially my worst season. I think that was the 2021 season or the season after that, where I got 120 points. So I'm actually beat my worst record by 8 points. Oh my goodness me. Just terrible. I want to end this video. I really, really want to end this video. It's so embarrassing. I've really let myself down this year, and I can only say sorry, guys. So sorry that I couldn't give you an accurate breakdown in terms of what this championship season was going to be. But hang on a minute here. I am not ending this video yet. I need to see what you guys predicted. Maybe it might make me feel better. It might make me feel worse about myself. So I'm going to look at Jack BCFC first. He also got the top 2 correct, but he also got Luton in 3rd, so unlucky. Sheffield United, he did a little bit better for me. West Brom, yeah, he didn't do too well there with West Brom. Coventry, not too bad. Sunderland, he did significantly better for me for. Any other predictions that stands out? He did a lot better for me for Blackburn. Oh my gosh. And Middlesbrough. Oh no. I'm not covering myself in glory at all. Sheffield Wednesday, last place, is an interesting one. He also got Plymouth correctly to be relegated. But he also got Derby and Portsmouth correct to stay up. So I can't lie, I'm having a bit of a stinker. I mean, Bristol City, his prediction there for that is not great. But he's done better for me in most of these teams' predictions. So Oh, let's look at another one. Let's look at Manish. So Manish also got the top two correct, and actually you got Leeds and Sheffield United, sorry, in third. So you got the top three correct. Luton down to 6, so not as bad as all of us, predicting them in third. He also got Oxford and Portsmouth down, so he made a mistake that I did. West Brom 21st is quite a shout, so that's potentially one that he got a little bit wrong with here. Coventry down to 11th is interesting. Sunderland and Blackburn he's done quite well with. I'm noticing that Sunderland and Blackburn, people are having different views to me to what I originally thought they were going to be. Millwall up there, he did a lot better for me on that one, I'll tell you that. Oh dear. Now, let's look at Johnny, GSGN. So, he got Luton first. Oh, that's the first time I've seen that. Oh dear me. Burnley second, no, he got correctly, but Leeds third, so that's a little bit wrong there. Any other that stands out to me? Not particularly. I mean, 15th place Cardiff is not the best prediction. Blackburn last. Oh my gosh, that's a rogue shout there. And Watford 22nd. So some really big out there predictions, but unfortunately it hasn't really worked in his favour. So I admire the bravery, but I respect it because I was quite brave in my predictions as well. But unfortunately, he has landed in with quite a fair few points there. Let's look at Tom, the Solihull fan. So he got Leeds first, Portsmouth second. That is a very interesting prediction. Sunderland third, your Middlesbrough fourth, Norwich fifth, maybe a little bit high there. Luton eighth. That's, I think, one of the lowest I've seen for Luton so far. You wouldn't have picked up as many points as a lot of us would have done. Blackburn third bottom, so a real divide on how people thought Blackburn were going to be. I'm noticing Sheffield United 21st is the one standing out to me. Wow, had he predicted Luton to be that side instead of Sheffield United, I think he predicted one of the relegated three to have a really bad season. He needed to change Sheffield United to Luton, and he'd be seen a bit of a genius right now. Burnley in 11th is also quite a rogue shout as well, I dare say. So, some really interesting calls there. I'm always really, appreciative to see all of your predictions. Vijay predicted the top 6. He went for Coventry first, Leeds second, Luton third, Burnley fourth, Norwich fifth, and Watford sixth. So, out of those 6, only 3 of them ended up in the actual top 6 in the end, and of course it was Leeds and Burnley getting up into the top 2 and Coventry finding themselves into the playoffs. Honeygun, he had predicted this, so Watford last. Wow, some really different tables this year, probably with the exception of the top 2, although he also predicted Luton first. That's making me feel a little bit better, but not by much, if I'm going to be honest. I thought it was going to make me feel a little bit better. Preston, I've noticed a lot of people are predicting around mid-table, so a lot would have got Preston wrong as well. Swansea 9th is quite a good prediction. Bristol City 7th is a very good prediction as well, actually. Middlesbrough 3rd quite high, I'd say. Plymouth 21st is not a terrible prediction. Stoke 23rd, interesting. So, some okay predictions, but also some very questionable ones as well, which has been pretty much the story of most of our predictions, really. Charlie made these predictions, so he wants more than 5, so I'm going to count to see how many he gets. So he's already got Plymouth correct. Okay, that's going to be at least 1. Very close with Derby. Stoke, close. Blackburn, not quite. Preston, he didn't do too badly. Hull is alright. Norwich, no. Swansea, 14th, no. QPR, 13th, no. Cardiff, yeah, that's quite wrong. Watford, no, not 11th. 10th, Sheffield Wednesday, close, not quite. 9th, Bristol City, no. West Brom, 8th, no. By 1 place, he's off. Coventry, close, not quite. Sunderland, 6th, not quite. Again, very close. Middlesbrough 5th, not quite. Sheffield United 4th, no. Burnley 3rd, no. Luton 2nd, definitely no. Oh my gosh. And Leeds 1st. So from first viewing, that's 2 teams in the correct position. I think we're just going to accept that this season has been one of the more unpredictable seasons I think we've ever seen. So I certainly think it is conclusive. So many predictions and so many of us have got this wrong. So I don't feel as terrible now, but I am very hard on myself. I want to try and be predicting the best that I can. But ultimately, this season has been amazing. And I will be predicting the Championship playoffs coming very, very soon. We've got Coventry and Sunderland first. And then that's followed with Bristol City up against Sheffield United. Out of those 4 teams in the playoffs, who is your favourite of getting promoted? I'd be interested to know in the comments down below. And I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts of your predictions and my predictions in the comments down below. If you need to take the mickey out of me, you know I deserve it. I have not covered myself in glory at all. So, that wraps it up for today. Oh dear. If you guys like what you see, please smash the like button. Please do hit the subscribe button too. And please share. All of those things are free to do and they really help. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are the legendary of this video. And as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.